and also the first Jesuit Pope. And we can speak now to Father Damian Howard, who's the former head of the Jesuit movement in Britain. Thank you very much for being with us. And there must be a huge sense of pride, actually, that he was the first Jesuit.
I think we took great interest in his papacy and felt very connected to him. He was somebody we could understood, spoke our language, and I think we responded very well to him. And obviously today we mourn a brother more than anything else. We're grateful to have been part of this, for us, historic period of history and to have benefited so greatly from all that he taught and showed us.
Well, just how would you sum up what he did teach? Because I think it's perhaps been interpreted by different people in different ways. But what was his contribution, do you think, as Pope?
It's interesting listening to the way people talk about his legacy. I think, for me, the legacy that he leaves is fundamentally the church as you find it today. It's very easy to overlook and forget the fact that when he took over the papacy in 2013, and my goodness, it's not long ago, but it seems like a different world when we think back to those days, the church itself was in a profound crisis. He took over from a very, very brilliant theologian, Pope Benedict, who himself felt totally inadequate to dealing with the challenges the church faced. Now we know what some of those challenges were. They were scandals, they were financial irregularities, and it was a bureaucracy more or less out of control in Rome. And I think to truly judge the achievement of Pope Francis, it's really important to look at the state of the church today, the state that still has its problems, but is fundamentally a church of vibrancy, missionary outreach, and has credibility even for young people. It's been very interesting noticing just in recent weeks a real interest in the church in this country on the part of young people. I felt that very much here in the University of Oxford.
So the question is, with the conclave, maybe 2 or 3 weeks away, is whether the next pope that they elect to succeed Pope Francis will continue his work or perhaps change some of it and even reverse some of it. That's always the question when we have a conclave and when a new pope is elected.
Well, it is, I suppose one can look at it like that, a little bit like a general election. Will we vote for the opposition this time? I don't really think that's the best way to understand the way the Catholic Church works. I mean, look at the fundamental continuity between the last popes, and it's extraordinary. I mean, 98% of what they say is the same, but there's differences of emphasis and differences of style. And I think above all, adaptations to the context which we face today. The question must be really, I think, how does the context of the world of 2025 differ from that of 2013? And you and I both know that it's an enormous change. We live in a world which is in perpetual crisis, it seems, polarized, facing the prospect of war. Places like Ukraine and Palestine and Israel are at the center of the world's attention these days. The question must surely be, who is now best suited to address a world that needs to hear the message of Christ, the timeless message of Christ, and yet in this particular challenging context that we face.
Would you like to see another Jesuit elected as the next pope, and maybe somebody else from outside Europe as well?
I can be fairly confident it won't be another Jesuit for another few thousand years. But it could well be a member of a religious order. I think there are some extraordinary members of religious orders who are currently members of the College of Cardinals. But I don't know most of the cardinals. And I think one thing we can be absolutely certain of is it will be an enormous surprise for everybody, whoever comes out of this cardinal as the Holy Father.
Well, really good to get your thoughts and reflections. Thank you so much for joining us on BBC News. That's Father Damian Howard, who's a former head of the Jesuit movement in Britain. Thank you. And let's just remind you that we have been following what's happening in the Vatican after the death of the Pope, and hundreds of people have been seen praying in unison in St. Peter's Square